I wanted to jump into this topic I saw Squiiji talk about art teachers and their hatred of anime. And I went to art school too, and I've seen it for myself. I've seen some masterful artists struggle to fight for the style they want to create in, but I've also seen this. I've seen some artists who kind of make me want to side with the teachers just a little bit. The reason art styles aren't being taken seriously in academia is because, yes, stuffy old teachers aren't taking it seriously, but at the same time, anime fans aren't really taking it seriously either. I want to first share my experience in art school with two anime artists at the time. The first artist, they were clearly a master of what they did when it came to anime art. I'm not even gonna lie, I don't think they needed art school. I think they just needed to get their portfolios organized. But in the end, they stuck it out, took all the classes, and got their degree. But that road was a long and bumpy road. They clearly had a style they were good at, drawing in that style they wanted to perfect, and potentially get a job in a field in the future at the same time. They were all young, we were all young, and the anime arts were still pretty new, mostly a passion thing kids were excited about. It wasn't like it was today with so many opportunities out there to create anime style. So our teacher was trying to push students into art styles that were maybe more, let's say, profitable at the time. So he was always pushing these students to get their arts more traditional, up to the caliber of the masters at the very least. I want to say this, when I say classic art, I mean art from the era of, say, the Renaissance till about Paul Cézanne. Anything after that was kind of dead to him. And so this student was so dead set to push their anime art through. And over the 4 years, I slowly saw both the teacher and the student wear each other down. And by the end, they had a good compromise. They would do some realistic from life pieces and some anime pieces, and even like a good blend of that from anime and from real life. And through this switching back and forth, crazy thing is, they kind of just really improved exponentially. Over that time, and by graduation, they had really taken their anime art and really perfected it to levels I have never seen before. It was crazy how good their art was. And they really created their own unique style of still being in the space of anime art. And now, student 2, they were also really pushing that anime art style. But by the end of their 4 years in uni, the student and the teacher had just mostly grown resentful of each other. They hadn't really improved the student. They didn't respect the teacher's feedback on their work. And I'm not gonna lie, it looked like some 14-year-old's first drawing. And I really think it's because they refused to learn basic proportions and anatomy. I know they couldn't draw any characters because they refused to see what's wrong in the work, because any feedback that was directed at them was taken almost as an attack on them, on their style and their art they loved. And at the same time, they really used anime style as an excuse. They would take feedback as resentment, telling everyone it's supposed to look like that. It's supposed to look wonky. Anime doesn't have proportions. 4 years into uni, they had not learned a thing, and they had not improved their style one bit. If all students were like this, I perfectly understand why art teachers don't even want to deal with anime styles. I wouldn't either if I was an art educator. Some of these students and artists use anime as a shield from learning how anatomy works. They know in their heads anime is drawn like this, so they try to draw it like that, without really understanding what those drawings mean, what those marks mean. They learned why to draw, but they didn't learn how to draw. And we see it all the time in the art community. Artists who scoff at people who use reference photos. And they pride themselves on drawing from their head, which is cool. You can draw 5 poses from your head. Great. And there is just this deep hatred of copying, which I get. I perfectly 100% get. Copying is awful unless you credit the source. We love anime. We want to draw anime. This is what I think you need to avoid if you're going to art school. Do not use anime as an excuse to avoid learning proportions and anatomy. It's straight copium to assume anime doesn't have it. You see it when you look at someone's anime drawing, anime artwork, and it just looks wrong. You're like, okay, well, that's Vegeta at home. You can see the proportions. You know it's wrong because we can tell when it's off, and you can only really master the skill of being on model by being on proportion. Let's not scoff or look down at drawing from references. You know, we look at some animes like Dandadan and Nokotan, and in some ways it's a homage or a reference to a meme dance, but in other ways it is using references to draw from. And I think if we really want to push our art up to the next level, it doesn't hurt to, in some ways, create some artwork from references. So one of my friends, actually in art school, he would sit there and draw a couple times, 5 or 6 times, and then later that night, that same pose he would try to draw from his head. And I think that's a cool way to do it. And the last thing I don't really want to see is people using anime as an excuse not to study the master's work. I have 2 notes on this. First is, you see references in traditional master's work all throughout different media. And 2, your masters should be top tier anime artists. You should actually get out and try to the best of your ability, do an art copy of their work. You should practice taking their work and their drawings in different and unique poses after you have gotten the basics down. I think you look at PewDiePie, and he got good fast because he sat there for weeks and eventually months redrawing and sketching anime he saw, and then eventually jumping into anime from his head. Being art that you love is the most important thing you could do as an anime fan. And then next would be interpolating those references to breathe new life into them. Like, this is amazing. And this is how you can really create iconic art. Art born out of the Renaissance and brought into today. Go out there, make copies, but don't share them as yours, dude.